Hello, everyone, and welcome to Benchwarmers. I'm your host for the night, Jody Norstedt, which means we're going to be talking a lot of North Dakota high school sports over the next half hour. We'll hear from some future D1 basketball players that are gearing up for their senior seasons, plus a conversation with NDHSAA Executive Director Matt Fetsch. But first, we got the band back together. Brad Anderson from 103.9 The Truck and Chase Miller from Your Live Event joining the show tonight. These guys are two of the hardest workers in the business, which means we can safely call them experts, right, guys? Well, I want to open the conversation with a glance back at the fall where football underwent a makeover. It was the first year of the new reclassification separating Class A from Class B. The biggest schools making up that 11 AA division that featured 10 teams, 6 from the West and 4 from the East. The remaining Class A schools falling into that 11A division. Then we had 11B and 9B. Guys, how do you feel this one played out in its first year, Brad?
I don't think nine-man was about the same. It was very competitive to the East and West. 11B, I think, went about, I think we saw some of the bigger schools, Kindred and Central Cass, compete, and HCV, and it was very East-heavy there. I thought kind of the old AA class was very competitive. You saw Fargo North and Jamestown, some programs that had struggled in recent years. That's a good fit for them, and obviously Jamestown with what they did, and hopefully with AA now, with the whole thing with Davies having an over 500, not making the playoffs, hopefully they made some tweaks there, and hopefully that'll work too. I mean, it probably wasn't for everybody, but I think we saw some teams that had struggled in recent years kind of come to life, and I think in those bottom two classes, there's still a little bit of kind of the top and bottom in that 11B, but I don't know how you can rectify that.
Right. And staying with football, Chase, I mean, we had our first big splash commitment of the spring. West Fargo Cheyenne defensive end Carter Menz is going to be a senior this year, accepting an offer to play from the Gophers. Chase, you saw him play a little bit this year. What impressed you about Menz?
Yeah, he's big, and I saw him play against Fargo Shanley, which is probably the closest to collegiate football because they spread you out. They got 4 or 5 wide receivers. He was all over the field, and particularly with Menz, he's just big. He looks like a silly putty for PJ Fleck to mold moving forward. So I think that was the biggest thing that stood out to me, Joe.
And it's just a monster. Just wreaks so much havoc in the backfield and watching him play this year, and it's only going to intensify this year, another year of getting bigger, stronger, faster. So Carter Mann's a bright future ahead for him. Basketball, the 3-class system has been floated around. Nothing officially presented to the NDHSAA. Brad, what have you been hearing about the possibility of that being brought up again?
I think there's a little more momentum to it. I think the Class A schools, there's more support for it than I think there's ever been because I think they want a little more flexibility scheduling-wise. The B side, maybe some of the smaller Bs. The one thing that I've heard and I've had no evidence of is the 3-class supporters say that some co-ops would maybe split up if they did that. And I've never heard of number of co-ops saying, yeah, we're gonna go on our own again. And that's a number I'd like to see, or I'd like to see more in concrete before we get real excited about that.
Chase, you think there is some hope this time? You think there's legitimate hope?
My biggest thing is if you're going to do it for basketball, you have to do it for volleyball because they are on the same structure. Class B, 8 region champs that goes to state. For Class A, you got 4 from the East, 4 from the WDA. I don't hear anybody in volleyball talking about it. It's from the basketball side. So if basketball can get it to the table, so to speak, then you have to look at it both from a basketball and a volleyball standpoint. And the crazy thing is too, Jody, was in the 60s that they went down from a Class C to Class B because at the time there was 250 some schools and they didn't think it was enough. Well, we don't have 250 schools right now in the High School Activities Association of North Dakota.
Quickly rolling here, baseball and softball just wrapped. Central Cass, Brad, now 4 straight titles. How impressed are you with that? And are they just going to keep this thing rolling?
I was impressed because I would say this maybe wasn't their best team of the 4. I mean, they had a few hiccups there. They lost to Kindred in the regular season, gave away a lead in the 7th, lost in the first round of regionals, and had to come through the back door. And Renville County had them on the ropes. I mean, a triple and a home run from Peyton Nelson, and they won again. I think the West is getting better. I think we've seen Renville County has improved, and some of those teams from the West. I think the gap, and Kindred's fairly young too. They're only going to lose their catcher, Maddie Burchell. There are some teams. Yeah, the Central Cass is going to be the queens of the hill, so to speak, until they get bumped off. But There's more, I'd say, more competitive balance than there was 5 years ago.
Well, Thompson wins another Class B boys baseball title. Cheyenne repeats as state champs in Class A baseball, and Bismarck wins their first. So that gap did close eventually in Class A with West Fargo running the table all those years, and now all of a sudden some of those other teams are getting a lot better. Dickinson, we've seen win a title. Bismarck, we'll see how that plays out. We're going to take a quick break. We will be back coming up with the NDHSAA Executive Director, Matt Fetsch. We'll have a conversation with him about a few of the key storylines surrounding North Dakota high school sports. That's next on Benchwarmers.
Thanks for watching Benchwarmers, presented by Avera Orthopedics.
Welcome back here on Benchwarmers. We chatted earlier about some of the changes we've seen in North Dakota high school sports recently, and the man that heads up a lot of those decisions along with his board is the executive director of the NDHSAA, Matt Fetsch. Matt gave us some time earlier this week to chat about a variety of topics, beginning with 11AA football, where a change has already been made to the process of qualifying for state. As we discussed earlier, despite finishing with the 5th best record in the class last year, Davies was left out of the 8-team field because only 3 EDC teams could advance to state. Next year, that will change.
The Davies situation in particular, that was something the board discussed prior to the plan being approved. You know, this realistically could happen if this, and this play out. Of course, it did in year one. And the unfortunate piece was all those games took place so early in the season that it really was an unfortunate situation. But after a year and digesting it, the stakeholders involved said, you know, we need to do something different. So the original concept of QRF seeding everyone 1 through 8 came to fruition and will take place here this next fall.
Who are some of the schools that are changing? I know St. Mary's is making that jump up to that 11AA level from 11A. Is there anyone else kind of changing?
The biggest piece in the 11AA and 11A, and then Horace will come into the fold. They'll play in the 11A division as well. With B, there's some minor adjustments based on enrollments, and that line is so fine, especially at the B level with 9-man and 11-man, where you have one big class of boys that comes through your school or one real small class. It can impact what classification you play in for several years. So that's nothing new though, just again, minor adjustments. And
you brought up West Fargo Horace, and that leads me to a question about, you're going to also have Minot North coming into the fold. I believe in 2024 is when they'll start varsity sports, kind of beginning that transition already. The Minot North Sentinels, what challenges or changes are we looking at down the line with the addition of now Horace and Minot North?
One of the positives is these new high schools. And again, we went about a generation with no new schools. So it's exciting that they've been popping up almost annually now. But both Horace and Minot North, I know they're going to be very aggressive in starting varsity programs as soon as possible. Minot North actually is looking to have a varsity golf team next fall with the girls. So just something that, again, participation will continue to explode in those areas because there's going to be so many more opportunities, which is great. And really the idea behind starting programs the way they have been. But, challenges wise, one thing we look back at the history of Class A activities, and really there's never been a period in our 115-year history where Class A has had more than 12 teams in a conference. And now we're getting to that point, and some of those discussions are starting where is it time to adjust some regional alignments and so on. So crystal ball wise, those are some conversations I see taking place here in the near future.
The state hockey will have a change this year with girls being separated from the boys. Girls hockey season will start a week later and it will end a week later with the state tournament coming in Minot, and it'll be the same weekend as the Class B girls basketball state tournament in Minot as well. What led to that change for girls state hockey?
Again, you go back, it's been 15 years since girls and boys state hockey tournaments been combined. And I would say for 15 years, there's been conversation on switching back, if you will, to the boys and girls being separate. So particularly the girls hockey coaches have been pushing for a while. And it's something that got to the administrative and board level and didn't have the support. And again, it's probably a byproduct of COVID because one of the major concerns was media coverage, television, et cetera, how that wasn't going to be an option. And now after COVID, there's so much more available and TV networks, whoever, figuring out ways to make things work. And that's something that's not really a concern anymore. And that was a major concern prior. The week later piece, well, eliminate a week of the fall winter sports overlap for girls hockey players that may play volleyball or another fall sports. It just eliminates that carryover, which is something that is viewed as a positive as well. And the board, when they did approve it, said, well, we'll try it. It'll be a 2-year trial. So something they'll evaluate, I'm sure, after year 1 and ultimately after year 2 to see if it's something that's going to work and will stick, or if potentially would go back to the way it has been the last 15 years.
Always making changes. Well, thank you to Matt for coming on the show. When Benchwarmers returns, 2 of the top basketball players in the state tell us where they're heading to play college ball. She's been a star for quite a while and a thorn in the side of opposing WDA coaches for a while. Bismarck Century's Logan Nisley is a 2-time North Dakota Gatorade Basketball Player of the Year and a 1-time State Volleyball Player of the Year. Currently, she's in the midst of rehabbing from foot surgery, though, that could sideline her for the majority of the upcoming volleyball season, her senior year. But back in March, Nissley made a splash, verbally committing to play basketball at the University of Nebraska. I caught up with Nissley earlier this week to discuss her decorated prep career, her future with the Cornhuskers, and to learn more about that off-season surgery.
Thank you very much for joining us, Logan. And first off, I mean, this is usually a time where you're running up and down a basketball court, but now you're on crutches and getting used to that life. Tell us about, what happened recently and through the surgery process, what you're trying to fix.
Over a year ago, I started having a lot of pain in my left foot, bottom of my foot. And then towards the end of the basketball season this year, my right foot had that same pain. And so I went to an orthopedic surgeon in Minneapolis, and turns out I had a broken bone in each of my feet that was broken in half. And so I had surgery Wednesday to remove both of those and then fix tendons around it. And then, I'm in 2 boots right now, walking around on crutches. My goal for being back 100% is October. So obviously starting whenever I can and the things that I can do, I can probably guarantee my ball handling will be better by the next time I play basketball.
So you were playing through pain a lot last year and maybe even the year before. Tell me about kind of the process mentally to do that in order to kind of lift your team the way you did, because you made it to the state championship again this year and you had a tremendous year.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is my competitiveness. I don't want to sit out. I don't want to take time off. During a game, sitting on the bench gets to me. And so thinking of kind of not necessarily letting my team down, but just not being able to be there for them, I think that pushed me a lot.
Well, we wish you a speedy recovery, and hopefully you can get back in time to maybe play some volleyball and help the Patriots go for a three-peat there. I want to take a little time to chat about your commitment to play basketball for the University of Nebraska. You made the announcement back in March after the season. What excites you about playing for Amy Williams in that program?
Oh gosh, I just love them. I talked to them yesterday, the day before. My basketball team, Century, is actually down there right now at a team camp, but I couldn't go because of surgery. But yeah, Tom was texting me, their assistant. He's like, I'm taking care of your girls, things like that. They're just amazing people. And that's what really made me fall in love with them. Obviously, their facilities are amazing. The Big Ten is awesome. Great teams in the Big Ten. And Amy Williams is just such a spark. I mean, she is one of the sweetest people you will ever meet. But once you step on the basketball floor with those heels, she is a force to be reckoned with. And I just love them. They're such great people.
I think anyone that follows North Dakota basketball could recognize your talent at an early age. But what do you feel kind of made you transform, if there's an area of your game, from just that prospect with a lot of talent to being a Big Ten player now, a future Big Ten player?
I think obviously since I was younger, my ability to shoot the ball has been something that's made me stick out. But I think since I've gotten older, I've realized the value of seeing the floor, seeing your open teammates, getting them open, not just getting myself open. And I think basketball IQ, the scheme of things when it comes to basketball, I think I've just really tried to excel in that part of it too. And I think that's kind of what made me excel to be a Big Ten basketball player.
You guys as a varsity team, I mean, you finished runner-up at state to a very talented and young Minot squad. I'm sure that kind of just is a thorn in your side a little bit, but how excited are you to compete against them again this year, knowing that they're going to have a lot of their talent back and you guys are going to be a good team as well? Those are going to be some fun matchups.
Oh yeah, it's definitely exciting. I think it's great for the state of North Dakota girls basketball. I mean, obviously the state championship, it was packed in that gym. So I think it'll be fun, like you said, great matchups, things like that. But yeah, I'm just excited. Obviously both teams want to win really bad, and so it'll be fun to see who comes out on top.
And again, we wish Logan the best in recovery, a bright future ahead for her. Well, from one D1 basketball commit to another, Minot 6'4" guard Darik Dissette led the Magicians to a state title this past March and was named state tournament MVP. His play down the stretch caught plenty of recruiting attention, and now he's committed to play for North Dakota State. I caught up with him a few days ago and asked him what made the Bison the slam dunk choice.
I wanted to stay in North Dakota. I wanted to represent North Dakota. So it was between Minot, UND, and NDSU. And I went to both. I went to all of them. And NDSU just felt like home. I love the culture they bring. I love the culture they have going on right now. They're a successful team and they take a big pride in defense, and I love defense. So.
For those NDSU fans that maybe haven't seen you play before in high school, how would you describe your playing style?
I definitely bring a lot of energy. I think I feel like I can switch the game at some points in the game. I talk a lot. I bring a lot of energy, so it could help the team.
You had a really good sophomore year, and then you backed it up with an even stronger junior year. Where did the recruiting steam kind of really pick up for you?
My sophomore year, I was just talking to NSIC at the time, and then I got to the state tournament, and I was still talking to them a little bit, and then it was the whole conference. And then right after the state tournament, that's when NDSU and UND started talking to me, and they said they're going to come watch me at the live periods. And so I was like, all right. And we go to live periods, and that's when they offered me those in Indianapolis. And then that's when my stock kind of started rising. I had other schools outside the state contacting me and stuff. So I was like, I'm good. I want to stay home.
As the games get bigger, you seem to shine brighter. And what you did at the state tournament was outstanding, being named MVP. What really motivates you about playing in those big games?
I have a big thing on me. I don't want to let my teammates down. I'm going to give it all I have. At the state tournament, obviously I lost my sophomore year. I got runner-up, and I took it personal. I'm not going to lie. I told my teammates every game it's going to be a dogfight, and just give everything you have, and we're going to out-compete everyone.
You and your teammates will probably be the favorites to win it again this year, coming off the championship. I know you graduated Eric Wentz, an all-stater, but what gives you confidence that you guys can make another run here?
People don't realize that a lot of people on our team are putting a lot of work in. We lost a lot last year, and everyone was like, what are you guys going to do? But deep down, I knew what we had to build, what we had coming. Everyone didn't know half our team now, but they were putting in work while everyone didn't know who they were. So I'm pretty confident in them, and I feel like we could just make a run.
Boy, what a season, though, for Decette. Averaged 22 points, 8 rebounds per game, shot 56% from the field. And you look back at that state tournament in the quarterfinal game, I think it went to double overtime against North. He scores 34 points. He has 20 and 10 in all 3 of those games, at least 20 and 10 in all 3 of those games, capping it off with 22 points and 13 rebounds in that win over West Fargo for a title. Dissette, going to be a very versatile player. Excited to see how the Bison are able to use him. When Benchwarmers returns, one big prediction for the upcoming North Dakota high school sports season from myself, Brad Anderson, and Chase Miller. Stick around.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports, presented by Avera Orthopedics.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers. It is time to get bold. I've asked these guys to make some bold predictions for the upcoming school year, whether it be a college commitment, the state champ, or how much money we'll collectively spend on concessions this year, because That always happens. We'll go alphabetically, and whenever we do that, it, of course, has to start with Brad Anderson. Brad, what's your bold prediction for the year?
I will come out and say I think we will see a repeat football champion in the fall. I think Lemoore Litchfield Marion, although they lost a lot of good seniors, I think is a possibility. I think Kindred's a really good possibility. They got Heinrich back. You've got a big offensive line with Sunram and Packer. And who knows, the way that Cheyenne's reloaded here the last few years, I think there's a good chance we'll see a repeat.
Bold. I don't know about that. Chase, what do you got?
My bold prediction, a team from the West in Class B softball will win a state title. Renville County was ever so close. Savacool's coming back. Broughton's coming back from the Muskrats. They were one pitch away from getting by the Central Cass Squirrels if they get a favorite on the bracket. Also, the Beulah Miners with Christensen there as well. She'll be back in the circle. She's a really good hitter. We saw Beulah and Renville County get close. Now can they get over the Viking and Squirrel hump will be the question.
Yeah, I watched them. I was standing right behind them shooting that championship game, and Coach had Ellie Broughton was right in front of me, and they want to be in that game this year, and they're oh so close. My prediction, I'll go on the football side too. For the first time since 2011, I think Mandan will be a regular season WDA champ. I think this for a few reasons. They have a talented and experienced quarterback and Dane Carlson back. Really good playmakers. Lincoln Wiseman, a standout running back. Carson Jablonski, a great receiver. Try Frank. And a big key, they get Century early. Century's going to have some new pieces that they kind of have to meld together. They always seem to, get off to a slow start and then really get things rolling. So I think if you're going to have a chance to beat Century and maybe win that regular season title, it has to happen early, and they'll get that opportunity playing them in week 2. Guys, appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Jody.
Yeah, it's Brad Anderson, Chase Miller. We'll see these guys again on Varsity Sports Live in no time. Well, coming up, we will put a wrap on this show and say goodbye and give you a look at what's to come in the next episode of Benchwarmers. Stay with us. A big thanks to Avera Orthopedics and our guests on tonight's show, Darik, Dissette, Logan Nisley, Matt Fetsch, Chase Miller, and Brad Anderson. We're already looking forward to another North Dakota high school sports season. One programming note, Benchwarmers takes the week off next week for the 4th of July. We'll be back on the 13th with Jason Andera in South Dakota high school sports. We'll see you then.